let's get into it. What's up?
You do it. Yeah, excellent. So, welcome to the Building Blocks of Bass. This very special guest. We're very honored to have Mr. Reuben Rogers here today. We're going to talk about walking, and there's nobody. I mean, nobody does it as fine as Reuben Rogers,
Wow.
in my personal humble opinion. And it's a supreme pleasure to be here with you today. So thank you so much.
Hey,
And
man,
I know
thanks for inviting me.
I'm excited to learn a bunch, and I know everybody else that's here to, check out some what you have to say, share some knowledge about walking, specifically today. But before we get too far into it, if I can, we have a very special. Reuben has an amazing course called the Jazz Basslines Basic Course, and we have. I'm sorry, that's cutting you off there, Reuben.
I
but
know,
this is
man.
the.
Come on.
How rude, right? How
I can
rude.
go like this.
There you are. Hey, screenshot that one. But Jazz Bassline Basics over at Open Studio, there's a great deal. We're having a discount on it today. So find the link downstairs if you want to join our Facebook group too. Everything's available there. You can find a PDF of everything we're going to do as well. But let's get into it. Let's start talking.
Yeah.
What is Reuben? What is walking bass lines? What is a walking bass line? What does that entail?
Well, it's funny. First of all, it's interesting to go back. You said, well, let's talk about that course that I did. Sorry, I don't know how. It's some years ago now, and it was something that I didn't even realize it was going to actually go the way it went, because we did certain things as a teacher. I mean, I guess I came into teaching from obviously just being on the road first of all, and people would just hit me, hey, you in town? Can I get a lesson from you? And it kind of started from there, doing master classes over the years. So some of the things that I'm doing in the bassline course is actually just things I've pulled from my teaching experience and from what I've been taught also, like a small combination, and just try to be as specific and simplistic as possible with what I'm saying, being that it's a baseline, basics. And of course, as I said, going back and looking at some of the stuff, last night, it's always a brutal thing for me to look at myself or hear myself. I'm really too critical, as in most of us are. So I can only see a few minutes, and there's so many things I say, oh, I could have done that different. I could articulate it, But what I do like about that, it was very raw. I didn't really spend too much time to say oh, okay, I got to do this, which it would have probably came out a lot different if I did that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So and what I thought about going into it, the key things was just breaking it down to breaking it down to just the chord tones. I preach that so often, and I think a lot of times as bass players, especially as and I said this the last time, I think as we develop, we start to make things a lot more complex, and of course as our ears grow and as our musicality kind of grows, of course it makes sense that we things get, but bringing it back to the fundamentals of walking a bass line, it's very few things that you need to make some solid bass lines. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I was listening. I was reading a biography, I think, of John Coltrane not that long ago, and was it a biography or something along the lines that Train used to just play chordal tones over and over, and he used to practice those all the time. I can't remember exactly. Hopefully, I'm not paraphrasing what I read or whatever, but that you could find him just practicing chord tones a lot of the time. You know what I mean? And
Wow,
just going over. Of course, not just mixolydian or not dominant seventh, not maybe just
Mixing and
minor seventh.
matching.
He's probably doing all kinds of extensions and all that. And I think as bass players, we kind of lose some of that. Sometimes
Yes.
we don't know the chord tones and really dig into that and make sure that we use that as our basis. So I know I from the I think I did I focused on the chord tones in just the blues for the most part, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Then I went on to the
Scales.
chromaticisms and scales. You know what I mean? And for the most part, I mean, that's all. When I start to walk lines, I feel like that's almost all I need to use, for the most part, and then let your musical creativity take over, after, to kind of like give you whatever that is. So,
right.
I hope I answered. That was a long-winded answer to your
absolutely
to your simple question.
Beautiful, yeah. There's a lot in it, and what you just said absolutely is like what you do in the course. So I know that it's going from the arpeggios, of course, knowing the roots, thirds, fifths, sevenths. And doing that in over a blues is what happens in the chorus, and I think that's great practice. It's beautiful practice, and then moving that into scales and using chromaticism together.
Well, I think the biggest thing now, as I play, forgive me, I'm trying to remember some of the things I said so that I can bring it to the current, to the now.
Please.
But a lot of times, I think what I didn't probably get to fully was that, even if you are playing these arpeggios, right? If we're doing that, but even if you're playing it over blues, finding a way to make music from it, no matter what, what I mean? Nothing you do, even if you're playing, looking at transcription or whatever, trying to make some music like you're playing with people. Make it feel like it's that, or make it sound like that as much as possible. I mean, because it doesn't have to sound like a exercise,
Right.
So I mean,
how creative can you get with that limitation?
Exactly.
Right.
That's the biggest part. That's the biggest start, right? Well, if we go 2/5 instead of 5/4, that's the turnaround.
Right.
I don't know. I gotta remember. Did I do 2/5 at all on the course, or was it just 5/4?
I got the
turnaround.
Right here. The turnaround. A lot of times you would do 2/5.
Did I even? Because that's what I was saying. I think
that's not a transcription, but.
So I did 2/5 a lot of times, or did I do 5/4? Do you remember?
There was a couple times it was a 5/4 implication type of sound to me. It wasn't starting from the root, but you were outlining a 5 and then moving to the 4 like the.
Right. And I think the biggest part also to remember is just staying on that turnaround is that, I mean, you tell me also. I know basic blues is the 5 to the 4, right? Right. But I swear 90% of the time everyone's doing 2/5 in this time, the turnaround.
That really used to hang me up so much. I would always second guess myself. Who is going to tell me, is it a 2/5? And I remember relating to this in high school, when we first started walking, I was like, okay, you could do one or the other. Is it going to be 2/5? Is it going to be 5/4?
But a lot of times if you do 5/4, it doesn't sound good when they do 2/5. I mean, it's just, I mean,
it doesn't jive,
it could work. It could work, but it just like, it's always like, I mean, because what do you see if you're doing, instead of, there's the rub, right? If you're doing if you're doing a B flat blues, and the 5 is F7, or you do, that's a 2. So I mean, obviously already the chord tones in the C minors, that's C, E flat, G, B flat. But if you're actually playing that A is the rub. If someone else is playing a C minor 7, if you're playing F7 as the 5 and the C minor, they're playing C minor 7, that's the rub, right? If you're picking a note like the A,
but if it's a
play,
maybe.
But I mean, most people, if they're playing the blues, they're playing a dominant 7, right? Are we getting too technical right now? I don't know.
People are watching. I'm sure they're down.
So I'm just noticing I'm raising the flag that it seems since I've been playing for the past years, that that's the 2 to 5 is what most people play. But if you're getting down to some like down dirty blues, like
It depends on
most people are doing 5 to 4. So just know the difference. You know, modern blues is 2 5, more traditional, St. Louis blues or whatever is
right.
5,
Exactly.
4.
What part of town are you in? Yeah, exactly. Are we in Soulard? Are we at the Bistro? Like it's going to be a different turnaround right there.
No doubt.
But you have to be able to hear that, right? We have to be able to hear if it's a pianist or even a horn player playing, outlining one or the other. Right. And that really hung me up because I didn't trust my ears for a long time. Do you know what I mean? And
so what would you end up doing? What would you end up doing?
Playing whatever and kind of hoping it would work, but trying to keep the tempo swinging.
I mean, I guess that's what we all do in general. Right?
So much trial and error. But before too long, somebody, I can't remember exactly who told me this, but they said, "We're listening to see what you're gonna play. You're gonna decide that." Do you know what I mean? For the most part, and I was that's a lot of power.
That's the 2 or 3 people who actually listen to the bass player.
Right.
Hello.
Yes, absolutely. But like outlining the chord tones, that makes the most sense in the world because that's the real bottom. We're not playing upper extensions. That's not our business too much when we're playing. That's
know your role and stay in your lane.
Absolutely.
Know your role, stay in your lane.
And of course we're just talking about
always and the more and the more people trust you. That's the biggest thing. The more people trust in your choices, then the more you can start to,
a little lean,
because they trust in wherever you go.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Sure. That's the biggest part. It's funny, and in my development, I didn't get that. I didn't understand that part till some years in because I was so like, I got to make sure I do that, but. Not realizing I had developed a good enough, momentum and reputation that it's going to be there. That's when it was like, okay, I could start to make these funny choices, and I don't get these funny looks because people are like, oh well, he's been tried and true.
But they're not arbitrary choices.
Right.
They're not arbitrary choices. You mean them. I mean, you hear them.
I mean them, even though I wasn't always sure. You know what I mean? I wasn't always sure, but you said that trial and error, you kind of like figure it out. But because I came from that, then I was like, oh well, I could do this, and I might get a funny look, but they trust in it, and as the more I did it, because I already had that foundation of people trusting in playing the right notes, I could play the wrong right notes and get away with it.
Love it. Yeah, I love it.
You know what I mean?
I love it, and we're I hopefully with our practice today too, or talking later on in the session too, you do a limitation exercise where there's a lot more chromaticism involved, where you do kind of have that, like at certain points you're like, where is this?
And it's all about placement, and it's all about placement and knowing, there's something very close that will make sense. You just got to hopefully rhythmically know how to just go bob and weave and trust your harmonic, ears, knowledge, whatever that is to kind of guide you through. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. But I love I love the story that you tell in the course too. And you mentioned the last time we were hanging out too here about talking to the great walking bass player, jazz bass player Leroy Vinegar,
right?
And asking him for advice.
Right.
And I'll just say it because you told it the last time, and you can correct me as I say it. But it was the correlation between the bass line should be similar to a bass or a baritone in a choir, choral music. Yes. Providing that foundation, not a lot of and the linear aspect of that. So not a lot of big skips.
No.
But we use big skips, so there's kind of when to use this, have control over each of these kind of concepts.
Trying to figure all that out. You sent me. I was gonna pull up these that PDF that you sent me.
So everybody watching too, we have a PDF available downstairs. Just click the link and you can download that. But here is some of what I have. We're gonna check out an F blues today. So I have up here, we have just these. We'll start with the scales. This is the Mixolydian scales for the F7. I got Mixolydian, which is like major with the a minor seventh, right?
Yeah.
A, B flat, C, D, E flat, F, and that's our one chord, right? Seems simplistic, but it's necessary. You have to know these scales in any direction and to be able to pivot. Whatever, right? I mean, you have to be flexible inside of these. So we practice them a bunch, of course. B flat mixolydian, same type of thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So knowing these scales and then breaking them up into the arpeggios or into the chord tones. Then we have the 2, 5, 1. The 2 typically being Dorian. And then the 5 chord. Not always this scale, but and none of these scales are guaranteed, right?
Right.
Any of this can change on a dime.
They're just choices. They're just choices. There's musical choices, right?
So, but here is some of the the PDF. What's on the worksheet that we have available here today, where we're going through a blues, and I just wrote this out. This is basically going through and playing just what Reuben was saying, doing the chord tones, but over the chord changes.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. And making that a practice, I think that's a fantastic exercise to be able to do. So if we just to break this down to make it clear, if anybody's curious, we have one. This is the F dominant. So this is the dominant, the mixolydian scale, but we're playing every other note. That's what that means, right? So
there you go.
3, 5, 7, and then you do it again.
Right.
And you keep going. You do all
right.
right.
No doubt. Mm-hmm.
So, but to bob and weave and make that interesting, man, that's tricky. So the first 4 bars of it, what I have here, sounds something like this. 3, 4.
Yeah.
Now that was a real big jump.
Right.
I don't like that, playing that back. That's a big one.
Right.
That wouldn't jive. Leroy Vinegar would beat me up on that, I'm sure. Now
Be
going
like,
this
what
way,
the hell?
should have been that one.
Well, what I do, what I'm looking at this, and you're looking at the this is the first the chord
First
tones
4.
only, right?
Yes.
And I'm thinking, so I guess when you say voice leading or good linear motion, if you're doing an exercise like that, I can't remember if this is the way I did it on the course or not. I should do my homework on myself before I get on these Zoom calls. Remember, y'all, you do your homework on yourself even. Thank you. Anyway, you go. You have, a good linear motion would be, and then keep it linear.
What's close by?
Yes.
Is what you're saying, right? What's closest without a big interval?
What's the next chord tone that's available to you in that arpeggio, right? So, so I said. Going to say we're going to the 5 instead, right?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we're going to the 4 too, I guess, right? Right. Wow. Well, I do that, I guess.
Yeah. By doing that, you see those connections. You see those little voice leading things.
And of course, do it a lot slower than I try to do it. I'm just trying to speed it up to get to some other things. But especially when you do it slow, you can actually think about it a little bit, right? And then build up to speed. If you think about it just a little bit, knowing what the next chord tone is, even if you have to kind of like be like, okay, what's in F? Okay, And then as you go on, speed it up as you become a little more comfortable. But staying that discipline is really, really tough. You know what I mean? It's really tough to want to do it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Let me try it. Let me try it
yes.
once.
Okay, please.
Well, I don't want to do it out of time. And this is exactly what you did, right? I think.
You're copying me.
So you don't always have to start on the root.
No. Right.
You can double these chord tones, though, right?
Why not?
Oh, no.
Right.
And maybe just a little 5.
Yeah. But I think what you were about to play was more like a 2-5, right? When you went. I forget what you played now.
I don't remember either.
I can't remember. It sounded like you were going to go to the G minor 7 instead of the C7.
Ah, okay.
Is that what you did? It doesn't.
I gotta play the tape back.
Yeah, you gotta play it back. I think your air was saying hearing 2-5 instead of 5-4. Anyway,
so entrenched.
Yeah. I could be wrong too, but that's what it sounded like. But anyway, see, hey, just these simple things, especially with when you're just diving into to the simplistic, forms of trying to play the blues and make these bass lines. This is so important. But I like this whole half position only. I like doing those exercises. I mean, if you want to just go ahead and talk about it,
Right. So here, let me see if I can pull this up. And another concept that's in the baseline basics course that no, this one is actually not. This is a little bit less. This is more of a thing I heard from somebody related, like a Ron Carter type of exercise, keeping just in half position.
Right.
So what we have here, half position is on the upright bass at least is as low down as you can get. So like E, F, F sharp, G, A, B flat, B, C, etc., D. Everything without changing or shifting.
Yes, without moving your hand, right? Without moving your position, moving your hand, basically. The first 3 frets.
Yeah, the frets. We'll get a comment about that, sure. There's no frets. Come on. What do these guys even know? But it's such a good limitation exercise, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And to really, maybe have less options, and how creative can you get with those less options?
I know on the course I talk about minor thirds. Not there's an exercise I do where you can't skip minor thirds, right? More than a minor third, right? Intervals from up or down. Mm-hmm. But I think what's even more creative is like a second, basically 2 notes, even like a whole tone, a whole step away, So like not being able to even, it's harder.
Bigger than that, yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? But having that discipline and staying in first position, you know what I mean?
Right.
That's the challenge, and that's also a way. That's when you have to use more chromaticism,
right,
and imagination, whatever you wanted to make it sound musical. You know what I mean?
Right.
So make sure we understand what we're talking about. Say I'm on a B flat. I can't skip any more than a whole step up, or a whole step. If I'm on a B flat, a whole step down. Okay.
So you're limiting the minor third exercise.
I'm living it even more. Right?
Yeah.
Because even more, and as I said, that even makes you So if I go. That's the creativity.
Yeah.
Right.
And the unexpected. Yeah.
Right.
Beautiful. It's still linear. It's of course linear by nature.
It's still very linear, and it's still musical, I think. You know what I mean? And I always like to say, what you want to get to is it's like using then that's when you start to incorporate a little rhythm to get you out of jams, maybe get you out of some jams that like you're like, oh, okay, I'm about to land on a chord tune that doesn't feel good. What can you do rhythmically to get you out of that rough spot? You know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
Because you can see it coming, you can hear it coming. You're like, you feel it, and it's a rub, and then that's when you're like, oh, you break down. But there's always something you can do. The more you kind of train yourself, you know, like. That's a jump. Right?
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
It's still music. I mean, it sounds very scalar, but it's still. I mean, if you I'm just limiting myself. If I add another interval, a minor third instead, that's even more music you can make, right?
Right.
I did a major third. Sorry. Let's try that again. I don't know how much minor thirds or major seconds or whole steps I did just now, but I'm always thinking just stay in that little. Maybe I just did a little bit more. Did I do more than a half position just now? I don't know. Maybe you weren't paying attention.
Somebody I was floating a little bit, so yeah.
Right. No, but
I can't tell you. That was
No, but it's just those exercises are priceless. Of course, you go to as many keys as possible, but if you can just figure a way, limit yourself in a way so that when you start to open it up, fourths and then fifths, I mean, then the sky's the limit after that. That's the main thing to those exercises that I talked about in the course for the most part. Scales and chromaticism. Oh yeah, all of that's in there, right? Yeah, I'm looking at your worksheet now, making sure we cover all our bases. Get it right.
Yeah. Let me check what I have here. Make sure this line that I wrote late last night with a screaming baby. It sounded okay. Here's what I have written in the PDF that's available. I could put some of it on the screen, but it would just move a little. Now this is I'm using a minor thirds, not the whole step thing.
I like it. It's beautiful. Yeah. Right, there we go. There we go. That's perfect. That's beautiful. And you stayed right. You just stayed in your lane. You stayed in the lane. The lane, not your lane, but the lane.
It's such a good exercise, and it's hard. It's fun. It's fun, but it's so
hard.
It's a tricky
one.
one.
You're so used to doing all kinds of stuff already. You're like, okay, no, calm down. Just
and this is
And the biggest thing that I noticed this helps me, and I'm almost sure I said this in the course, is that if you come with that mentality, when you start to read other like new music, you know, especially music you're not familiar with, if you come with that mentality, you don't have to move too much. You can kind of like focus on what's on the page a little bit, move as little as possible, make as good as music as you possibly can in the moment, and as you get more comfortable, then you can start to get around an instrument a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, you know, knowing that, okay, just stay in the here, you know, okay, oh, it's A flat, it's T minor, A flat major 7. You know, just stay right there. That was like, you know, I just did a G dominant 7 to a C minor 7. You know, just staying right there so you can focus on, okay, what's coming next? I'm all right here. You know, instead of being, you know, trying to be slick right out, you know, right out the gate, you know.
Do the job right. Yeah, exactly. There's time
you
for
know,
that. Yeah.
Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane.
That's that was. I remember it was a while back, but I remember listening back to one of like the first times that I ever recorded anything, and I was like, man, I am playing all kinds of big intervals that don't make any sense, trying to be super hip.
Right,
you know what I
right.
mean? Like, oh, I know this note's available, but I wasn't hearing any of that, you know?
Right.
And it surely didn't help the music, unfortunately. So,
Right.
But I
Serve
learned
music.
from it, you know. So that's
great.
a big thing.
Serve
But that
the
limitation.
music. As bass players, we are in service to the music, service to the other people in on the bandstand until we're not. You know what I mean? And
Right.
that's not, you know, that's why the few are chosen to play this instrument. It's a selfless thing that we've decided to do, and accept that until it's time. They said like, oh yeah, okay, no, you go ahead now. You can have a solo for like 5 seconds. Go ahead, hurry up.
Take half a chord.
Half a chorus.
Come back in on the bridge, man. We don't have time.
All right, that's all. We forgive all of you, Peter Martin,
Hey.
Adam, man. Anyway,
But yeah, so it's you know that just staying in half position too. That thing that we had talked about a minute earlier too. I think is great if you can try to do that too. Do you ever just stay inside of one position and try to make bass lines work that way?
I mean,
that's true.
Probably I don't think about it as much, but I say, yeah, you know, I always like to say, because I've been talking to some electric players, 5th fret, you know, right? Yes, stay in the lower positions as much as possible. You know, I mean, of course, I could, you know, vary whatever I want to now as a more developed player, but you know, especially when you're trying to not just when you're reading new music, but when you're even just getting used to playing with new people. You know what I mean? New situations.
You feel it out.
Do what's most comfortable to bring out the best, you know, in your playing, and then as you ease into it, you know, then you could, you know, take flight or whatever, you know, because ultimately, as I always preach, the best musicians, the best people, the best musicians people gravitate towards make the you know, the best decisions in the moment, and always have that in the back of their mind. So you know, so I think that's a good choice, a good place to start most of the time. Just simplistic, wherever it is, wherever you're the most comfortable, start there. You know, and move on from there, harmonically, technically, all of it. You know, so
I love it. I love it, and it's the bottom, it's the bass. Again,
Yeah.
back to that role. I love that. The best musicians make the best choices. Couldn't be said.
At least musically. You know, at least musically.
At least musically. That's another session. But you know, it strikes me too. You know, we've talked about these bass lines, note choices, basically. You had talked a little bit about rhythm too, with doing skips, and I love the way you leave rest, and of course it's all in the moment. It's nothing like pre-planned. You hear it, and if you check it, please go, everybody, not Reuben, go check out the course, and you can hear him doing this. Or let's put on any number of records, and you can hear him doing this, leaving this space because of what's happening in the moment.
Yes, no doubt.
And not being afraid to change up the rhythms or leaving a beat out. You know,
no doubt.
If you're walking, you don't have to play every single beat all the time. You don't always have to play just quarter notes. We should be able to play just beautiful long quarter notes, though. Right. I mean, we haven't talked about the attack or the duration of a note. We're looking for long, beautiful notes that are sustained.
Yes.
Very clear attack. Yes. But what about some other rhythms that we could put into our walking lines?
Shoot, this as I always say, it depends on what side of the street you're walking, or the side, or what did you say earlier? From the neighborhood that you
Yeah, right.
you grew up
Right.
grew up in, or what side of town you're talking about. Anyway, any of that. Like
Makes
for
a
me,
difference.
I pull from my Caribbean roots. You know what I mean? I can't necessarily say, oh, this is I can't say that is something that has that I think consciously the rhythms that I've gotten from growing up in the Caribbean, but it has to be a part of it. It has to be part of what I play or what I do. So
Right.
I think whatever music you've gravitated towards, like in your life, whatever before, whether it be jazz, whether it be gospel, whether it be blue, whatever,
Any.
calypso, reggae, R&B, whatever. Some of those rhythms have to come into your playing. Why not? You know what I mean? That's
Absolutely.
just like it should be organic to whatever. So it's hard for me to say, oh, these kind of. Of course, we know all the things that we've heard, Ron and Ray Brown and Paul
Skips
Chambers.
and pull-ups.
Basically, those three people in general, you could probably they've done all the inflections on the bass that everyone else started doing. Of course, there was many fathers of bass that came before, but I just pulled those names out of my
Is it
memory, my bass memory bank right now. That everyone's doing it in their own way. A lot of the same things, just in their own way. But it also comes down to when they do it. You know what I mean?
right?
That's
It's not arbitrary.
It's just when they do it. It's what separates a lot of. It's not just.
It's in the moment.
Yeah. And I think that's the other thing too. And I keep on preaching. It's like the basis is. Now that I think about it, really just the choice of those inflections is what separates when people hear you or people hear me or people hear whoever. You know what I'm saying? They can probably just know who you are, not just from your sound, but just your choice in how you you do your pull-offs or whatever when you make them. I think that's probably what I get. Like I was listening to something the other day. I can't remember what it was, but I've listened to Dave Holland so much. I know his choice of articulating. I mean, he does a lot of he I don't even know. I can't do Dave Holland. Forgive me, Dave. If you ever see this, give me Dave Holland. He does this like kind of like pickup, like a grace note. That's his thing. I mean, a lot of players do that, but just the way he does it,
Right.
it really somehow, like I've always preached that, like learn to start your measures off or your time off right on the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't tell you how many times I've always said to a student for the first time, I was like, "Let me hear you start a blues or something," and he go 1, 2, 3, right? That, which is not wrong. It's not wrong. It's it's whatever flavor you want. But a lot of times I notice you already lost a kind of emotion to your bass line. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you gave me a little salt before I asked for it because I didn't taste the
You were ready. Yeah.
the dish, right? Somehow Dave can do it anytime because he always knows how to put it. It's just part of his natural thing, and it never sounds like it's off or like it's in the way. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So that's just one example. Sorry.
I love that you brought up Dave Holland for walking, because so many people don't associate walking with Dave Holland, but he's on so many swinging records. I mean, Egg Jones, The Oracle.
What can you say about a master like that? I mean, he's versatile of the versatile. That's the biggest thing about Dave Holland. If we had to break it down, you know what I mean? Of course, he's known for all his lyrical, his solos, and he can get around it. He knows so much harmony. But he also, the biggest thing about people have to realize about Dave Holland, he has one of the most versatile sounds on the bass. Okay. His sound, and it not just his note choices, but his sound and the instrument, guitar instruments can go anywhere. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
This is the way I feel. This is me speaking. I've never talked about this with anyone, but it's like he can be in a Miles Davis setting. Yes, he can be in a Keith Jarrett setting, and like have that sound. He can. I remember I was playing with this fantastic. Rest in peace. Tomasz Stanko is his name. He's a Polish trumpeter, and I played in this band for some years, and I went back and listened to some of his early records with Dave on it, and a lot of it was just all over. It was free and all, and the choices that Dave was making in the music was even a whole nother side I'd never heard. I'm not to say I've heard him play many free, but it was like a whole. I was like, oh my goodness, what? Right. I mean, and it made me. There's other records I've heard. He's just a chameleon. He's just a musical chameleon.
From Anthony Braxton to all over.
He's just a musical chameleon, and so anyway, but he's making different choices in the moment, in the music, whatever it is. You know what I mean? That's why he's never been able to be pigeonholed to be like this or that or that. He's like, I'm here. What would y'all like me to do? Yeah. Sorry, that's a bad British accent, but anyway.
And then, oh man, his technique. The music. But to see him play.
Well, that's the other thing. He doesn't have like your orthodox. He's kind of an unorthodox way of technical, but it works for him. It works. I can't play like him. I have unorthodox technique also, but it's like that's the other thing too. It's like you work on the technique as much as you possibly can, but whatever's gonna come out of the instrument, come out of your hands. As long as it sounds good, it's right. That's the way I feel. You know what I mean? If it sounds good, it's right. If you're struggling to get it, now then you gotta figure something out. You know what I mean?
Right.
And because also if you're struggling, it's gonna sound like you're struggling. You know what I mean? It's gonna sound forced, or it's gonna sound not comfortable in the music. So, and he never sounds uncomfortable, Dave. You know what I mean? Most of the players that we gravitate towards sound comfortable on the instruments.
Sure.
Absolutely. So it's gonna come out. So
that makes me think of whenever I get to see you play, before you start playing, or when you start playing, it's like a big smile. It looks like you're doing the thing. Not always. I'm not saying anything. But you look like you love playing the bass or making music.
I do.
Of course we do. You do.
If I ever get to heaven, I don't know, but it's like heaven on earth for me right now. Let's say that. That's the way I feel.
Yeah.
No doubt.
But that's got to be a big part of your feel and your sound and what you bring into the music too. Is just that joy you clearly love to play, and you're not hiding it either. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, man.
So I.
You know what? It's funny. During this pandemic, I mean, we've all had to gravitate towards doing Zoom calls or whatever, but I've had to do a few like videos and audio. I've done a lot of audio, but the video I haven't done much of. And there's certain I wasn't comfortable doing it. I didn't want to do it, but since then I've been like, I'd rather just do audio. I don't feel like I don't, I'm not on social media or anything. I'm like, I'm great to do this, but I'm like, I'm in the music in my room and not with people, and that's not the same thing for me.
Yeah.
What I'm getting at is that I did a video and played the track so that they can sync it up and send it out. And I didn't look at the video. I just said, okay, I think I nailed that.
Is this the Diane Reeves?
It was about no, this is something early in the pandemic.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And I nailed it. I thought I nailed the track, so I just sent it off. And the person said to me, he's like, you win the Ham Award, the best Ham Award. I was like, what? I was like, what do you mean? She's like, she's like, well, you look like you were really trying to put it on for the camera. I was like, really? So I went back and I looked at it and I was like, oh damn, okay, I see. but I was really in the moment.
Yeah.
Because I was in the music. You know what I mean? And I didn't even care about what it looked like. It's just I cared about the music and what was coming out. You know what I mean? So I don't know. To your point, a lot of people always tell me that, but I'm always like, oh, okay, I wonder how it actually looks until I see a video and I'm like, oh, I need to calm it down or something. Damn, calm down.
I kind of feel this. I feel the same way when I watch back. I'm like smiling and looking at everybody all the time. I'm like, Bob, just chill, just take, you know. But I'm having so much fun.
Yeah, forget it, man. You know, I say it, but I don't ever heed my friend thoughts. I'm like, whatever, man. It doesn't matter. It's about the music, you know.
Yeah. All day, every day, and it's gonna be so beautiful to get to play with people again too. It's coming, and you say this in the course as well too, because you're doing these exercises with a metronome, and you know metronomes they keep you in check, and we got to use metronomes. You say this in the course, of course, because we want to work on our internal time and everything. But if you can play with another musician, if you can communicate and share energy, and connect, you know that's where it's at.
That's what it's about, and you learn from it. You learn how to play with people and that's ultimately what you're trying to get to. You know that okay, this drummer, okay, he drags. Okay, I gotta push the beat a little bit. Okay, he's really on top. All right, I gotta keep it in the middle. You know these things. It becomes just something natural to kind of like adjust in a certain kind of way because that's just that's a part of music.
Yeah, absolutely. Just stay in the moment. Don't have any of these preconceptions, This is what I'm going to do? Nah.
Please don't.
Whatever happens. But we've gotten way off of doing our bass lines, but I'm loving this. I'm loving it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's head on over to the comments and see what folks are saying, if that's cool.
Oh,
we have
comments. Let me see if I know what you're talking about. Oh,
can you find them over there on the right side?
Oh, okay. I see it now. Yeah.
So we'll see if we have any questions. A lot of people saying, hey. Rick Hicks, how you doing, Rick? Chris H, first 2021. Wow, that's weird to say out loud. GPS. Someone's getting an echo. Let's see if we have any questions in here. Somebody asked who invented the internet. I don't know that.
No.
Hey, Edelson, how you doing? We've got some regulars in here. Love it. Does anybody have any questions? We'll scroll down further, of course. Any questions about walking bass lines? Or if you're newer to walking bass lines, you've been doing it a long time, what's up, Okay, Dave Shepard. The bass is in charge of the form of the song, right? Whenever I play the bass. Need confidence. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Hold on. Wow, this confusion of 2/5 and 5/4 is great. A great discussion. Is confusion the word you meant, Micah? Oh, maybe on my part.
Well, no, I guess what he's trying to say is that, he articulated a different way. Just, being able to figure out, okay, which one should I play or shouldn't I play, But it's always it's always that split second. It's like a split second decision. But that's great what you said about someone saying like, well, we wait to see, But not all musicians have those. I mean, I think me and you, Bob, been very fortunate to play with very sensitive musicians that they actually are doing it. But there's plenty of musicians who are on their own like trajectory and not actually listening with those kind of ears, and they're fabulous musicians nonetheless. But you can't expect that to be happening all the time, right?
Yeah. No, great point. Yeah, it's one note to the next, right?
Yes.
One note at a time.
No
One
doubt.
night at a time. Cool. Okay. Oh, okay. This is good. I was saying something about getting off the lines that we're going to practice. Usually we're here practicing stuff, doing a lot of playing. But Harriet, having a discussion is a great way to do this. Thanks. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Harriet. Glad you came, stopped by. Patrick saying Happy New Year. Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate that.
What's up? New Year.
What's up? Happy New Year. Man, 2020. It's going.
It's going to be better. This year's going to be better.
I'm already feeling better.
We may not have any gigs, but it's still going to be better. Oh, goodness.
Oh, here. So we've got Rick has got a Leroy Vinegar story. Got to meet Leroy Vinegar in L.A. for a benefit for Sweets Edison.
Yep.
In about 1983. When I shook his hand, mine disappeared.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, he was a big boy. He was a big man. He was. I don't know. He had to be maybe 6'6".
Is that right?
6'5".
Wow.
He was tall, maybe not that tall, maybe 6'3", 6'4", but he was much taller than me. Let's just say that. And yeah, he, you know, yeah, he had like
dwarf me. That's
yeah, he was serious.
That's cool.
He was menacing for sure. Mm-hmm.
Is there for myself? I'm not very well. I don't know Leroy Vinegar's playing as well as I should. I'll be the first to admit. What's a good place to go? What are some good recordings?
You know what? I think there's I think there's a I'm gonna make sure I'm right, but there's something like Leroy Walks, something funny like as simple as that. I think is one of his like debut albums or one of the albums that he did. He has one or two of them that I remember, and I think it's one where he actually is holding the bass like kind of like this walking. Or something like that, you know. And yeah, I'm trying to remember now. There's some other records. I think with Sweets. I know he played with Sweets some.
Yeah.
Oh man, I gotta go through my memory banks.
Usually but those solo albums, I remember seeing those. Yeah, it's like it's always a walking somewhere in the title or something. Right. You know, it's like very walking and bass centric, of course.
Yeah, something like that. Very bass centric.
Yeah. This is a bass album. Very cool. Okay, let's see. Okay, looks like we got a question here. Chris H. What about doing an F blues going up and down on a single string? Yeah. So instead of staying in a position, staying on only one string.
Why make it so hard on yourself?
I think that maybe would good as an exercise to learn where the notes are on the bass. You know, perhaps like doing a scale.
I wouldn't do that for real. Right. I mean, yeah, if you want to challenge yourself, yeah. I mean, Ray Brown used to say he used to have this thing he used to say about playing on one string, especially on the G string, being able to just walk on or something like that. Okay. But I think knowing your fingerboard, especially knowing in here, once you get from the first positions, this is actually knowing to be able to walk here. Staying in one position, not just here, but move it here and stay there. Even though I faked it just now because I haven't done it in a while, but but it's like being able to do that is also a part of it. I say more than trying to do one. I mean, I think doing on one string, playing lines, but that doesn't. I can't even imagine trying to do that and making good music from it. You know what I mean? Right. Making good. I can make good music crossing strings and making the best, you know. But ultimately, of course, the only reason why I wouldn't normally play here in one position here, for me at least, it doesn't sound as good as if I'm playing a little bit more down here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Use this as an extension of the lower register because organically it sounds better, right?
Right.
Depends on what you're doing. And we're talking about walking at least, right? You know what I mean? Right. Of course, you start to doing so many things. Of course, things start to go different places. But if we're talking about walking, you know your instruments. Of course, use those exercises. You know, whatever it is. But personally, I would never.
But that's a great point for sure.
Right.
Oh, what? I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think there was a lag there.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Oh man, I do not need to talk over your bass line.
Go ahead.
This C absolutely is not that C as if you were just on an electric bass. You know.
I mean, unless you're like Larry Grenadier or some shit. I want to punch him sometime. I'm like, when he plays a C right here, I'm like, how the hell can you make that sound so good all the time? I want to just like trip him or something like that. You know what I mean? But like, there's some players who make their their nose hair sound the same. I mean, McBride is like that. There's certain people. Most of us human beings, real we gotta make sure we know what works for us. You know what I mean? Works what sounds the best. That's what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? But you know, prove me wrong. What's his name? What's his name? Who was it?
Chris. Yeah, Chris is a regular here. What's up, Chris?
Yeah, Chris, prove me wrong too. If you got if it sounds like really good, say, Reuben, shut up. Let me show you. Bam. You know, I'm cool with that too.
Room for everybody. Yeah, exactly. You know, I tell when I get to work with students and they talk about that, you know, learning these positions in here, they talk about just that too. If we're playing like a two feel or playing a ballad, where you need these longer sustained notes too, playing down here and making the string as long as you can from the bridge to wherever you're stopping it is your best bet for getting a good fundamental tone. You know, like a good sound. I mean, sometimes it's necessary, though.
That's a. Okay, it's a C sharp. I never played a C sharp, right? Almost never.
Only if I was doing something like.
Right, almost like never. Now I will need to go actually and practice this. Now that I'm like, okay, damn, I don't remember the last time I played a C sharp here. That's not good, Reuben. That's why it sounds like it. Yeah. Whoever plays the D, we never play the D there, right? We have just this and this all the time, right?
But if you were playing something fast, though,
yes,
it's
right.
There. You need to know it's there. Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I remember even, I don't know if McBride would ever remember this, but I remember talking to McBride about this many years ago and feeling really like, oh, it's not just me. Like, he would say, I talked to him about reading and feeling confident enough to play in the correct position, right? You know?
Okay.
You know, because I would do like, right, like say if it was like right,
sure,
that makes sense, right? But I didn't have confidence enough to make sure I was gonna play everything in tune there, right? Right. So I would always be like,
right,
that sounds good, but it would always be like, oh wait, the next thing was probably like right here,
next door,
right there, and I would still be like, and it's that shift, that not making that correct, like in the moment musical decision to play the right there, not having confidence enough to play in the right position would always be a little rub in the music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'd be a split second that probably only I realize, but also realizing like, shoot, if you just had to practice it enough or had the confidence enough, you know, it would have sounded better. You know what I mean? So
that's interesting.
That's the biggest part. And I remember him. What I'm saying, what he said he would have that same issue. He would always, especially when he was sight reading or reading something he wasn't comfortable with, at least visually, he would always go back to like certain things that it worked, but it didn't
familiar.
It didn't sound as good as if he just stayed in this position. You know what I mean? You know, it would, and like he had to develop that way into his time playing the bass. You know?
Wow.
So it's a life journey. It's a life journey.
And that's it. Never stop learning, no matter where you're at.
No doubt.
That's beautiful. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Oh, I think I see Peter Martin dropped in on us here.
Why? Oh. Stay home.
I don't know what he's. Peter Martin, $5. Y'all great. Thanks. What's up, Peter? How are you? Let's see. Oh, okay. Here. Sorry, I'm just digging around. I'll pull up somewhere if we see any questions here. Some points on interval study, please. In relation to, Broth, if you're still here, in relation to walking lines, in relation to, like, say, walking over a blues, maybe really quick, just taking that scale that we were doing, if you don't mind me just saying.
Please.
So we can do that scalular, right? Then break it up in thirds. Fourths, fifths, just do all that. Practice that stuff. And one thing I really like in in some of the bass lines from your course, Reuben, you'll do something like, you do this real chromatic, like, and I love that like half step.
Right. It's all right there. Paul Chambers, I love Paul Chambers, all around Carter, probably more, even more Paul Chambers than Ron Carter. I mean, he was a master of that, you know. You know, the slick lines, big round notes, chromaticism. Oh goodness, you know. As a matter of fact, I'm about to put him on when we get off this call.
Hey, okay.
I need some inspiration, PC.
Oh man. Okay, well, we have a question from Peter. What do y'all think about pianists playing bass lines under your bass solos?
Go ahead, Bob. Go ahead. You answer that one.
And some people do it really well as long as they're being sensitive and understand a bass line. I think about you know, Ray Brown. You know, he's playing what's that Milt Jackson album where they do Frankie and Johnny? It starts off and yeah, exactly.
Monty.
But that's for a melody, though, I guess. So.
Yeah. My thing about the bass line thing is if you're doing anything you do, whether it be chordal, bass line, if it's tasteful and not forced or arbitrary, I'm all for it. What I don't like is when it just feels forced and you're just doing it as a gimmick or it's like oh well, this is hip to do. If it calls in the music, I don't care. The other thing that sometimes deters me from that is that if a pianist isn't confident in playing bass lines, you can feel that they aren't.
Sure.
And they're trying to they're like focusing on their bass line instead of focusing on what you're playing or trying to help you in your solo.
Right. Supporting.
Exactly. They're not support. Yeah. They like it's an exercise for them. And a lot of time, what I've heard before, actually, I haven't probably experienced it too much, but I've listened and heard. So what would happen because they're not used to playing bass lines? It's the feeling of
yes, 2/4 accent.
You know, I mean, and it's overemphasized in a way that doesn't feel good. Maybe I'm probably exaggerating a little bit, but that's the way it feels.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think there's something in there too with the way that if they do skips,
right,
they might do. Right. You know, like not have the. If we did something like that, it might be a little lesser.
Right. Exactly. So it's a you know. So I think there's not a lot of piano players that I've heard that do it like extremely well. They do it pretty decent. And you can live with it, but there's plenty who don't do it well at all, or they don't do it at all because they realize, I gotta stay in my lane, you know. Right. But I'm open to whatever as long as it's tasteful, and keep that in mind, you know.
Right. Beautiful.
Same thing as in, if you decide to play high on the piano, know that timbre, the timbre of your instrument will cut off a lot of what I'm doing already because sonically the air is going towards the higher pitch or the timbre of what was happening with the cymbals or the piano.
Yes.
You know? So if you're playing even just doing a little line, if it sticks out just a little bit, already masks the timbre of my instrument. So if you're not doing that also tastefully, it's a big deal, you know?
Right.
In the scope of things, not just because I'm the most important. In the scope of the musical sensibility, what's going on, you know.
Right.
That's my take on pianists and their comping, Peter Martin.
That being said, I can't, Peter. I hope I get to take a solo sometime soon, and you start walking under me. That would be amazing. That just imagine that. Oh, somebody's helping us out. Leroy Walks is great. That's one of the albums that
okay. Walking
Bassline. This cat, his name is even Walking Bassline.
Right.
He tuned in. Hey, Walking Bassline, how are you? Darla, I think this is Darla. Please talk about playing the 2 and 4, the 1 and 3 in the roll. Ooh, we'll do that next time for sure. Talk about 2 and 4 and 1 and 3 in the roll of the bass and establishing that feel. as far
I
as
feel
like
like
no
I
choices.
feel like I've heard you say that a bunch of times. They need to just go back to some of your some of your stuff before. You know.
I'll take that, Reuben. I do.
No disrespect. No disrespect.
Let's see. We got a few more, and then we should probably bounce. Oh, this is an interesting one that I had not considered ever. I think. What do you think of walking bass lines using a bow? I've never heard that, and I don't think that it would work very well, honestly.
You should be looking at the camera. I had nothing to say. No disrespect. No disrespect too.
It's an interesting idea, sure. It's different, but
within. I mean, hey, if another thing, if you can make it sound good, say shut up, Reuben. Check my shit out. Boom, boom,
yeah.
boom. Other than that, I would have people laugh at me if I started to walk on the bandstand. At least in the context that I'm playing with. Now, don't get me wrong. There's probably some context where it might work and good. And as I said, ReubenRogers@me.com. Please email me if there's something that's worth hearing. I would love to hear it. But as of right now, to answer your question, in the context of playing with jazz musicians, walking as you know, yeah, I would be fired. No,
right.
I mean, that's real.
Let's see. This is an interesting one. Maybe this will be close to the end here. When you're walking, are you playing the melodies you hear in your mind, or some of it is just knowing different patterns for moving from one chord to another? I like that question.
I'll let you answer that first.
It's what's in our minds. It's hearing the bass line. It's not knowing that this note technically fits inside of any scale or whatever it is, or the chord of the moment, whatever. It is, hearing from interval to interval inside of a chord, moving from one direction to the next.
Yeah, so. I've never, and I think I said this in the last chat we had, I've never been a pattern. I never approached music with patterns and stuff like that. Of course, we all, gravitate towards learning scales and different like that. But it's funny, all of that goes out once I start playing. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't even think about it, right? I don't even think so. So the approach comes from probably what I've maybe practiced or studied, but I never think about it when I'm making music. So yeah, I think so I agree with you. I think it's more about just finding a good flow with whatever harmonically situation I'm hearing or I'm playing. And the biggest part, whenever I would do in the past before the pandemic, I used to do these master classes all over the place, and I'd have these students barking at them for like a week, doing these no, you're playing it wrong, no, let's just C-7. Oh no, you're right, it's this and that, and we'd have fun with it, but it'd be a lot of me barking or saying like, oh, you're doing this wrong, let's try this again. And I remember at least the times that we would go and have like concerts at the end of the camp or something like that. I would always go to the bandstand or get with the group right before they would do their presentation or whatever, and tell them, look, man, it's been a good week. Now, all that stuff I told you this whole week, throw it out the window. Forget it. And just, it's all in you already. I don't care what happens. Just have fun, enjoy playing music together. I mean, it's so that's the way I approach it. It's like whatever I was doing, in the practice. Yeah, you're taking some of that with me, but it never comes even close to this once I'm in the music. Okay,
I love how you said it's in you already.
Yeah,
it's already there.
It's there. It's there. It's got to come out. It's got to come out. That's why we all have our own voice. I always say this too. We all have our own little, our thing. It's just somehow others speak a little louder, a little clearer than others, and we gravitate towards those voices.
Sure. Yeah.
Whatever instrument that is, a lot of times. So
yeah, beautifully said. Yeah, beautiful. This same person had just one more. How do you internalize lines that you transcribe? Do you just play them over and over and over again? Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Do it till you you need to have it memorized, sing it.
Simple as that.
Try to transcribe some bass lines by ear.
As much as you can, internalize. As I said, it's got to come out of your pores. It's gonna come out. I promise it'll come out. It goes back to what I said about the rhythm thing. What you internalize is there already. Somehow you just got to find a way for it to come out and be cool with that. It's gonna come out. Whatever you listen, even if it's not on the instrument, putting on that, whatever, that Leroy Walks in the morning, or that, that Ray Brown, Frankie and Cham, what's the name of that?
That's the way it is. Walking Bassline helped me out with that. That's the way it is.
Yeah. Putting on those kind of records first thing in the morning, even if it's while you make your coffee. All that's going into your whole being.
It's getting in, yeah.
It's getting in, and hopefully, and as I said, and I'm sure I'm keep on repeating a lot of the same things. I'm a testament to that, because I hated practicing for a long time. But what I always did was listen to music constantly, and some of that stuck with me for sure. You know what I mean? It stuck with me and it helped me develop in a certain kind of way that even getting on an instrument wasn't going to do. You know what I mean? If I didn't have that, getting on an instrument would have been nothing. You know what I mean? Because I would have been like, okay, what am I doing? And that's the biggest. Okay, anyway, that's a whole other conversation.
I hear all that though. Absolutely, I hated practicing, but I listened to music just all day long. I loved it.
Yeah.
But
it's a part of it.
All that being said, you listen to music all day, but also y'all practice these scales, learn this technique, learn these arpeggios we talked about, practice these exercises from the PDF down below. Beautiful exercises. And
don't be like me, lazy bum for like the first 15 years of my life.
But you were playing, you were working. I mean, the difference was I wasn't. I was home listening, hanging out, listening, playing little gigs. But here we go. So we should probably wrap it up, Reuben. But once more, I wanted to say thank you so much. Everybody, please, if you're so inclined, if you like what we did here today, if you like hearing what Reuben is saying about walking bass lines too, please consider checking out Jazz Bassline Basics. I mean, listen. Oh, I'll be laggy. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you so much, Reuben. Sincerely. Thank you so much. Happy practicing, everybody.
All right.
See you soon. See you next week, okay?